In this video, we're going to see what is generative AI from a layman's perspective. We will be looking at what is generative AI. We will look at what are large language models or LLMs. How does an LLM work with a prompt? And what is a prompt? Why is GenAI even important? And finally, I'll show you a hands-on demo using OpenAI. We will see how we can prompt it to give some results to make our life productive. So what is generative AI? Imagine the blue box as our brain. We have been trained with multiple videos, images, text, speech, audio, etc. over a course of time. So let's say if I'm 10 years old, the number of images, videos, speech, text, audio which I go through is different from someone whose age is 50 years. Once we consume all these artifacts, we are able to generate a unique artifact based on the video what we saw, based on the text what we heard, and the speech what we heard, and we can create music with different variations. This is what our brain does. The major difference between a software and our human body is humans, we ourselves prompt our brain. But in case of the software, when we create a similar kind of a artifact and when the user tries to access it, we call these as large language models. A model is basically an algorithm which is pre-trained with datasets. A classic example of a living model is our brain. Our brain has been equipped with pre-trained datasets. It uses these datasets and creates different neural networks and relationships so that it can respond to queries which it gets. The same thing happens in an LLM. So LLMs are similar to brain, but then it can do only a particular function which you have coded with. In this particular case, I have fed all these images, videos, text, and audio to it so that it can generate some artifacts. And I am using natural language to interact with these models. And this is called as generative AI. So generative AI is basically a software which can use large language models which are pre-trained with some existing data sets and can generate some artifacts out of those existing trained data sets based on its neural network. So what is inside this blue box? We won't go deeper in this particular video, but imagine that it just has some complicated relationships on how things can be stitched together. Now let's look at what are LLMs. LLMs constitute a foundational model. These foundational models were the basic models created by researchers initially. We won't go in depth into the foundation model. Imagine it like a base software which has some predefined capabilities. Using that foundational model as a base, we provide billions of data as data sets so that we can transform these format from whatever format we have, and it can be converted into a relationship kind of a format or transformed into a relationship kind of a format within the foundational model so that we can use it to train that particular model. So the foundation model, let's say if it has some parameters, it can do only a particular functionality. You train that particular foundation model with billions of data sets and convert that foundation model into something which is unique, specific to the dataset and the type of dataset which we train it with. In addition to that, foundational models use different modules because foundational models are just the base, and for different capabilities like image, text processing, videos, etc., we will have to leverage different modules, and these modules are already built and researchers have built them separately so that you can plug them. So imagine it like libraries which you use within your code. So within an LLM, you have a foundation model, you leverage different modules which are specific to individual use cases, and we club them all together, train that particular model, and then we finally create a large language model. This model can be fine-tuned based on the modules which I mentioned. We can use these models to predict data, and in order to return perfect results, there is a concept of prompts using which you can communicate with these LLMs in a specific language using which we can get the best out of it. We will look at some prompt examples as well. And ultimately, we started leveraging these LLMs to generate data or content based on the type of use case which we want. Now that we know what is an LLM, let's look at what are the common LLMs which we know about. The most common one is the GPT, which is provided by OpenAI. Google has their own called Gemini and Palm 2. Gemini is the most frequent one. Gemini is the most recent one. Palm 2 has been there for a while. Meta has their own called Llama 2. Cohere is another startup which has a Coral LLM. And finally, Elon Musk's X.AI has an LLM called as Grok. So these are different LLMs trained on different data sets. So the difference between these LLMs is each of them have unique data sets which are injected, and based on those data sets, the LLMs are much more stronger, and it can have a much more stronger neural network to give you predictable results based on the prompts which you want it to generate content with. Now, how to get these LLMs better, right? How are these LLMs even trained? So we talk about like, okay, we are feeding the data sets, but then how can I fine tune these LLMs to make them better? This is where prompts come into picture. So imagine that I have a GenAI model. It could be of any model, GPT or Gemini or something. Imagine that I'm just having it as a GenAI model. I have a user who is interacting with that particular GenAI model using a chat interface. It's using natural language processing to convert text into a particular format with which the GenAI model can understand. And these formats are called as prompts, right? There are a set of dedicated folks who are working on creating these prompts if, let's say, something goes wrong. And this particular process is called as prompt engineering. So imagine that I have asked that particular GenAI model, how can I get access to my profile page? But the GenAI model responds saying that, sorry, I don't understand. So the responsibility of the prompt engineer is to identify these kind of failures and understand why the GenAI model is not able to identify that there is a profile page and it's not able to link and answer them correctly. So prompt engineers go and identify and fix these prompts so that users get seamless answers without having to go through these kind of unknown or non-understandable text. And this is how LLMs are getting better and better. And this is why you see that companies started mentioning that they have fine-tuned by ignoring some text, ignoring some controversial stuffs, etc. Now coming to why even Gen AI is important, right? Why should I even worry? If you ask me, I'm a software developer. Why should I even worry about Gen AI? And does it even matter? Of course. And let's look at why. Gen AI can be used for automating a lot of our existing repetitive use cases. It can help in increasing our productivity with faster product development. Since most of the time we look at documentation and then start working, Gen AI can be leveraged in terms of training the LLMs with this knowledge base, and you can leverage it to create faster products. And finally, it enhances the personalized customization, which I can control using prompts. Of course, there are downsides to Gen AI. Generative AI can create bias. There could be issues with accuracy of the results because what if it's not linking your question with the answers correctly? Some of these LLMs are trained with billions of data sets, and we don't know what kind of data has been injected to train that particular LLM with. And due to that, bias gets created automatically. And finally, what if copyrighted data or privacy of individuals are compromised, as we don't know what is the data set which is getting trained? So these are some of the cons. However, I would say let's stick with learning generative AI, and we need to be conscious about what are the cons so that we know that the software which we are going to use is not completely perfect. Now let's look at this with an example using OpenAI. So I'm going to chat.openai.com. This is just a public chat. I'm not even signing up. There is a different option. If you see here, I'm going to just use the obvious one. I can see that ChatGPT has options like plan a trip and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to ChatGPT like how I would talk with you. So I'm going to tell ChatGPT that, hey, ChatGPT, I would like to visit Thailand for my upcoming vacation. Would you be able to help me plan it? So notice that I'm typing how we colloquially talk or interact with other humans, right? If you see here, what ChatGPT says is, of course, I'd be happy to help you plan your trip with when you're planning to go and how long would it be staying. ChatGPT is asking me questions now, right? It's asking me how long I will be staying and if I have any specific interest or something, right? And also I'm surprised that it's asking even the cultural experiences and adventure activities. So I'm going to say I would like to relax in the beaches along with snorkeling activities in some of the pristine beaches of Phuket. So I'll say that I want to visit some Phuket beaches or Phuket Islands, and it also asks me how long, right? I would want, I would be there for 9 days, let's say. Now let's see what it says. So it says great choice. Phuket is known for its stunning beaches and excellent snorkeling spots. Here is a suggestion. So it's saying that I can stay in Phuket for 3 days, and also it says six, again 4 to 6 relaxation in Phuket. It says okay, snorkeling adventures, but I want to visit other locations as well. If you see here, this may not be a good itinerary because it's just saying I can stay in only one particular location, which is Phuket, right? So I'm going to say I would also like to explore Krabi. Can you accommodate that as well? So it says that absolutely adding Krabi to your itinerary. So it looks like it's adding Krabi into the list. I think it has added 3 days, right? Also, it has added some itinerary. Let's imagine that, okay, I'm okay with it. I would also want to know how much will be um, the cost of the trip, right? So which is different from the itinerary, but I would also want to prompt to see how or how is it even able to identify with the itinerary. Let me ask how much will it cost? How much do you think it will cost for me? So it's smart actually. It says that it depends on various factors, including travel preferences, accommodation choices, and also it's giving some budget accommodations as well, and it's giving the prices of that too. So it's giving me in dollars. What if I want to see that in INR, right? So I would, let's say, let's try prompting it, right? I would like to see the pricing in INR. Can you help with that? Now I'm assuming it can go and change that into INR as well. Yeah, it's doing it. Also, now that I realize that there is an itinerary, I want this itinerary to be maybe listed in a table format, right? So I can ask it to do it. Let's try that. Can you provide me the itinerary in a tabular format? So here's your itinerary in a tabular format. So which is another amazing way of looking at itineraries, right? Crisp and neat. Now, if you notice what I have done in the whole conversation is I have been interacting in a way similar to how we interact with each other. Now, if you relate to the example which I said earlier, like our brain, like how our brain can process languages and it can create a neural network out of it and understand what we are talking, the whole LLM of ChatGPT is also able to do that, right? And also there are prompts which are specifically designed to do some specific tasks. For example, there are some tuning algorithms which have been tuned for it to do some specific things. For example, I asked it to convert the itinerary into a tabular format and it converted me that into a tabular format, right? Default one was actually bullets and I asked it to do it and it was able to do it, right? And this could be a common feature for every output, right? Not just for the trip planning. You can maybe ask it to create some images, videos, etc., or maybe you can ask it to do some productive things, ask it to write code, etc., right? So it can do all those stuff. So this is where if you overlay this with our LLMs, if you overlay with this with our architecture. So what I did here, I used the chat interface of OpenAI, used prompts to steer the conversation into a specific direction. Right now, I didn't face anything where it said that I couldn't understand, but if something was not working, there will be like folks fixing in the background to understand why that particular prompt failed, right? But that's how the LLMs get better, and that's how LLMs work. Now, coming to the overall artificial intelligence picture. Now, artificial intelligence is a wider term. Within artificial intelligence, we knew machine learning, and machine learning has so many different types. You have supervised machine learning, non-supervised machine learning, reinforced machine learning. We're not going to look at that in this particular video, but I'll just end this particular video with a thought around how bigger artificial intelligence is compared to Gen AI. So within machine learning, we have deep learning, which is another neural network concept where you can have relationships and stuff like that. We will go through those in another video. And finally, Gen AI is just a smaller subset of deep learning, right? Whatever we just saw, whatever we just learned is just one small bit of artificial intelligence. There are so many other things to be learned. If someone says that they've learned ChatGPT and then they know AI, that's not what artificial intelligence really mean. So there are more things to it. It's not just generative AI and LLMs. There are more things to it apart from Gen AI. Now coming to our architecture, this is the foundational model, and this is an example of how GPT-3 could be. Now, how does these recent AI applications, you can ask me, most of us have questions, so many AI applications which are getting created, how are they even having their architecture built? So, so most of the architectures are built around existing LLMs. Let's imagine that people are building on top of OpenAI. What folks might be doing is they have the LLM, they build UI on top of it, they build chat prompts using which they can fine tune these particular prompts, and they just name it as star.ai, right? I mean, just put whatever in the front.ai, and this is what most of the folks are doing. They're just wrapping around existing LLMs. Um, so these LLMs have REST APIs, so you can call these REST API via REST from the UI or a chat interface or something like that. They fine tune these LLMs using the prompts, and they say that, okay, this is what is our AI software, right? However, this is just like a layer 2 AI, if you ask me, right? This is not the pure LLM which is designed for that purpose. People reuse the existing LLMs to tweak it to their own purpose. There are a lot of purpose built LLMs, and in the future we might be seeing a lot of enterprises building their own LLMs, like banks building their own LLMs, enterprises, tech companies building their own LLMs based on their data sets which are from their company. With that, I will end this particular video. I hope you learned something new from this particular video. If you want me to make any specific topic on AI, do let me know in the comment section below. AI is a evolving field. Everyone is learning and things are evolving every day. As I learn, I try to make it simple. If you think this particular video was complex, do let me know in the comment section as well. I'll try to address that in the subsequent videos. As always, if you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. Meet you again in the next video. Thank you very much.